On this mission, the first contact came quickly. Marine patrols moving through the high ground of northwestern I Corps began encountering North Vietnamese troops almost as soon as they entered the area. Small arms fire erupted from concealed positions along jungle ridgelines and valley approaches. The enemy did not hold ground. He struck briefly, then withdrew into terrain he knew well. It was clear to the Marines they had entered a hornet's nest. As the patrols pushed forward, more signs appeared: fortified positions, supply trails, and movement along routes that did not exist on any map. The enemy was not passing through. He was operating from this ground. Rather than withdraw after initial contact, Marine commanders made a different decision. They would stay. What followed became known as Operation Dewey Canyon, one of the deepest and most demanding Marine operations of the Vietnam War. The operation took place at the Marine Corps' area of responsibility in South Vietnam. Two valleys dominated the region, the A Shau and the Da Krong. For years, they had served as natural corridors for the infiltration of North Vietnamese troops and supplies moving from sanctuaries in Laos toward coastal cities such as Hue and Da Nang. The terrain was unforgiving. Steep mountains surrounded the valleys, covered in dense jungle. Only a single road, Route 548, passed through the area from west to east. During the monsoon season, low cloud cover often isolated the region entirely, cutting it off from observation and resupply. Under this cover, the North Vietnamese Army had built a supply network that sustained operations across northern South Vietnam. By late 1968 and early 1969, intelligence indicated that the buildup had resumed. Aerial photography showed increased traffic along Route 548. Reconnaissance teams from the 3rd Marine Division, operating deep in enemy territory, confirmed heavy movement, fortified positions, and newly constructed communication facilities. The buildup could not be ignored. The decision was made to strike directly into the heart of the enemy's logistics system. Even as planning for Dewey Canyon was underway, Marine attack aircraft and fighter bombers began pounding known enemy positions, targeting supply routes, bunker complexes, and storage areas. The goal was not a quick raid. The goal was disruption, denying the enemy the ability to move, store, and regroup. On the morning of D-Day, Marine aircraft struck landing zones on either side of the Da Krong Valley. These zones, designated Razor and Riley, were chosen for their elevation and proximity to enemy routes. Shortly afterward, Sea Knight helicopters lifted off from Vandergrift Combat Base carrying battle-hardened Marine infantry. Protected by gunships and fixed-wing aircraft, the transports descended almost simultaneously into both landing zones. There was no enemy resistance at first. In the hours that followed, CH-46 helicopters brought more than 1,500 Marines and 46 tons of cargo into Razor and Riley. By nightfall, both zones were secured. Work began immediately to turn Razor into a permanent fire support base. Within hours, Marine artillery and command elements were established. By the second day, fire support base Razor was fully operational. The following day, 3 companies of the 3rd Battalion, 9th Marines were lifted onto a ridgeline known as Co Ca Va, where Fire Support Base Cunningham was established. From this position, Marine guns could reach deep into the valley below. With Cunningham operational, the Marines had achieved something the enemy did not expect: a permanent presence inside his sanctuary. Contact with North Vietnamese forces became frequent. Patrols from Razor and Cunningham had little difficulty locating enemy units. Most engagements were brief. with the enemy withdrawing after exchanging fire. Marine firepower consistently forced disengagement. As the Central Valley was secured, additional Marine units pushed south along the ridgelines to establish Landing Zone Dallas, guarding the western flank of the operation. Farther west and south, teams from the 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion searched for enemy base areas and monitored movement. On January 29th, Army of the Republic of Vietnam forces joined the operation. 2 companies of the 1st Battalion, 2nd Regiment, 1st ARVN Division were lifted into Fire Support Base Tornado with orders to establish Fire Support Base Lightning and seal off the eastern escape routes. Then the weather turned. Low clouds and steady rain settled over the mountains. For 9 days, flying was severely restricted. Helicopter missions were limited to brief breaks in the weather. Supplies were flown in whenever possible. Wounded were flown out the same way. When flying was impossible, supplies were dropped by parachute under radar control. Marine aircraft continued radar-guided bombing, striking tunnel complexes and bunker systems despite poor visibility. Throughout the weather delay, the Marines did not hold in place. They advanced. On February 4th, a company from the 3rd Battalion, 9th Marines, occupied Fire Support Base Erskine, the final base required for the push toward Route 548. When the weather cleared on February 9th, Marine helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft returned in force. Resupply operations surged. Fresh troops were inserted. Artillery and airstrikes intensified against enemy positions south of the Marine line. The operation now shifted from disruption to destruction. Battalions of the 9th Marines advanced from Cunningham and Erskine into the Da Krong Valley. Their objective was Tiger Mountain, a long-established enemy headquarters and supply center controlling Route 548. Contact was immediate and sustained. North Vietnamese forces, reinforced during the weather delay, fought from fortified bunkers and trench systems. Marine units advanced slowly, using fire and maneuvers supported by artillery and airstrikes. Observation aircraft flew at first light each day, directing fires and reporting weather conditions. Forward observers coordinated artillery strikes that broke enemy resistance position by position. On February 22nd, a Marine company encountered a major bunker complex west of Tiger Mountain. After a determined fight, the position was overrun. A second bunker complex nearby was discovered and destroyed. More than 100 fortified positions were cleared. By the end of the day, Marine units had reached the crest of Tiger Mountain, the northern anchor of the A Shau Valley. Days later, Marines captured the enemy headquarters complex at Tam Boi, forcing North Vietnamese troops to flee after destroying what they could not carry. On February 27th, Marines moving along Route 548 captured one of the largest munitions caches of the war. Hundreds of tons of weapons and ammunition were seized or destroyed. By March 18th, Operation Dewey Canyon came to an end. A Marine regiment had been projected more than 50 kilometers into enemy territory and sustained in combat for weeks. The Marines did not simply pass through the enemy's sanctuary, they stayed. And by staying, they denied the enemy ground he had relied upon for years.